Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Probably at Disney, where I have just returned from this year's Destination D23, which it's safe to say was its own kind of roller coaster. We did get some park announcements, which we are going to break down and analyze today, as well as rank. Yes, in the comments and in a poll on my channel, I want you all to give your rankings on this year's batch of reveals. But we're also going to talk about what wasn't announced at D23 and why that itself was one of D23's biggest surprises, and if this event is even worth it moving forward. So, once again, you are watching Probably at Disney, and it is time to revisit Destination D23 2025. Now, heading into this year's D23, expectations were high and for two main reasons. The first is that Disney marketed this event, and whose tickets went on sale back in April of this year, as the biggest Destination D23 yet. Granted, no one anticipated a Destination D23 event would be on the same scale as D23 fan events in Anaheim, but there was talk about Disney wanting to elevate the destination events at Walt Disney World, and they even moved their location from the Contemporary Resort to Coronado Springs this year for additional space. The second reason is that Walt Disney World is in the middle of a building blitz on a scale that park fans have not seen in decades, if ever. We have new lands and rides coming to Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Animal Kingdom, plus a new resort that Disney has yet to really talk about. So, the focus of stateside Imagineering right now is in Florida, and there is still a lot of info we don't know about these projects, like the name of the Indiana Jones ride replacing Dinosaur, details about the Encanto attraction, what Magic Kingdom's other Piston Peak ride is going to be, further details about Monstropolis that replaced with its courtyard. Is Lakeshore Lodge sticking to the same design as its pre-pandemic concept art? And when should we expect the reopening of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad? You get it. But shockingly, about 2 weeks before Destination D23, and as I covered on this channel, the D23 schedule was released and without a parks panel. Panic ensued until reports came through that Disney planned to sprinkle announcements throughout the various panels, with Villains Icons of Evil being where Villains Land news was now expected. And again, while we did get some announcements, which we're going to talk about, we really got next to nothing about what we expected. In fact, we got less park news this year than we did at Destination D23 back in 2023. Furthermore, Disney dropped more Disney World news in the days leading up to the event, and they just dropped additional news today as I'm recording, and which I'll reveal and discuss with you here in a second. But even so, we did get some stuff, and several reveals were really significant surprises. So let's dig into those announcements in the order they were revealed throughout the weekend. And then we're going to circle back on what went wrong at this year's Destination D23 and what I think Disney is up to. So, one of the first Disney park related announcements of the weekend was the reveal of Zootopia's Officer Clawhauser character for the Disney parks, and who is likely going to be appearing at Animal Kingdom, along with Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps, not only for Zootopia 2, but also for Zootopia Better Zoogether, that new 4D show coming to the Tree of Life Theater. But the first major announcement was that the Magic Kingdom and Shanghai's Tron Light Cycle Power Run attractions will be receiving a Tron 3 overlay in the coming days. Even though Tron 3, which is called Tron Ares, isn't coming to theaters until October, that film's red and orange color palette will be taking over Tron's blue palette, and with Tron 3's Nine Inch Nails soundtrack. As you're probably aware, Tron's Daft Punk music is a huge part of the ride experience and even the atmosphere and the walk up to the ride. So, new music is likely to have just as much of an impact on the experience as these new colors. Now, when Tron first opened at Magic Kingdom in 2023, I had the opportunity to speak with Imagineers about it, and I actually asked about Tron 3 and if that new film, which was already in production at that time, was going to have an impact or had an impact on their plans for the attraction, and could it play a role down the line? The answer I got is what you'd expect, which is that they were just focused on this ride and its Tron 2 inspirations. And there was an idea or a feeling that the movie and the attraction were occupying two very different spheres. Now, while I don't know this is just my speculation. I think this overlay was a relatively new decision and it may be part of a new mandate, which is to further blur the lines between film franchises and their theme park experiences. The Mandalorian and Grogu overlay that's coming to Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run just in time for the 2026 movie may be an example of that. This could be the beginning of a new trend. Let me know if you agree or have a different take in the comments, but this is something I definitely want to keep an eye on. But you should know that the Tron 3 overlay for Tron Light Cycle Run will be debuting at Magic Kingdom on Tuesday, September 16th. The next major announcement at Destination D23 was changes coming to Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress at the Magic Kingdom. I have already talked about this with you in my last video, which was a breaking news slash first reaction to this announcement, but let's revisit what Disney had to say, and then I'll give my new analysis now that the dust has settled for a bit. Disney began by explaining that Carousel of Progress made its debut at the 1964 New York World's Fair, and the version playing at Disney World right now is a tribute to that original, and it has been operating since 1975. Then Disney revealed that the show will be gaining a new introductory scene where guests will hear from Walt Disney and via an animatronic, just like the Walt animatronic from Walt Disney A Magical Life that debuted at Disneyland in July. Concept art shows he's dressed just like he was for the 1964 World's Fair TV special, and there's also Progress City artwork on the table, hinting that the model for Progress City could return to this attraction too. Question mark on that one, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. But currently, Carousel of Progress's opening scene is just a shot of the ride's logo and a voiceover. So this addition and at this point in the show makes perfect sense. And it lives up to the attraction's name, which is Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. Now, while I have issues with the design of the Walt animatronic in Disneyland, in principle, I am all for this change. It is a perfect fit. It makes Carousel of Progress more valuable. It's a great way to have Walt in the Magic Kingdom. And Carousel of Progress itself is a quintessential Walt Disney attraction in that it's a blend of history, of family, and optimism for the future. Where I have concerns, however, is Disney noting that there are further details to be revealed, including what John and the family are up to, and that the heart of the attraction will stay the same while introducing Carousel of Progress to an entirely new generation of fans. If the ride's final scene is updated and the other three historical scenes remain the same with just some fine tuning and polish, I think this is great news. The show needs this. And that may be exactly what Disney has planned. But they didn't quite say that. The phrase at the heart of the attraction will remain could mean bigger changes are in store apart from the Walt animatronic. And since Disney is seemingly removing American history from parts of the Magic Kingdom, while also not valuing park history itself across Walt Disney World with changes that aren't really necessary and actually detract, I can't say I'm confident at the moment in their vision and its execution. I know that's a very negative take. That is not my intention. That's just my honest thoughts. But I'm still eager to hear more concrete details as they move forward, including just when Carousel of Progress will close for these updates, what Walt's new script is going to be, and when this ride could reopen with all of these changes. Now, Disney did make a few other announcements at D23 concerning Disney Cruise Line and the international parks. I'm not going to touch on those right now as we're keeping the focus on Walt Disney World. And honestly, they weren't that big of a deal. In fact, several were kind of already known anyway. So we're going to keep moving to the next Disney World announcement we got, and that is the design inspiration for Magic Kingdom's Villains Land. No, we did not get any new concept art or details on the land's rides, but we did get this. And in a nutshell, Imagineers have coined a new term for Villains Land, which is conjured architecture, where everything looks like it's magical, fluid, and organic, like it's stemming from some sort of curse. Imagineers went to Paris and Barcelona on a research trip, and they have settled on Art Nouveau as the art style they're drawing their ideas from and from which they're creating this conjured architecture. For reference, Art Nouveau already exists in the Florida theme parks, such as in Remy's Ratatouille Adventure portion of Epcot's France Pavilion and in Epic Universe's Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. I have a few other thoughts and details I want to share with you about this and what it means for Magic Kingdom as a whole, which I'm planning to do in another video either you've already seen or will in the coming days. So more to come on this topic, but for now, that is the gist, what we got about Villains Land at this year's event. Now, the next and last Disney World announcement we got at Destination D23 was the return of Cinderella Castle's original color palette. One of the only things fans got for Disney World's rather underwhelming 50th anniversary was a rose and gold paint job that fans haven't loved, present company included, and like Happily Ever After, which fans demanded return in place of the 50th anniversary's Enchantment fireworks show. Disney listened and they've reversed course again, and they're bringing back what they say is a look inspired by the castle's original palette, and that is blue and white but with gold trimmings. Disney said the updated paint job will have grays, creams, blues, and golds, aiming to enhance the castle's architecture. But like most D23 announcements this year, they are still putting the finishing touches on the paint design process, so no dates for when this is happening either. Even so, I am thrilled about this news. The color palette for Cinderella Castle was chosen in the 70s for strategic and aesthetic reasons, and I'm glad to see it's going to make a comeback. But that is it. That is the actual real Disney World Park news we got out of Destination D23. Some other things were shared online and were presented at D23 as news, but honestly, it was already known, it was already out there, such as Disney animator Andreas Deja's involvement with Villains Land and so on. Also, around Destination D23 at Coronado Springs, there were no new models or dioramas or even concept art for guests to see, only a handful of items from the Disney archives. In fact, if you weren't a Disney fan in the know, it's tough to say whether you would have been aware of all that is actually in the works right now for Walt Disney World. But what makes this even weirder, and why I would argue right now that Destination D23 is simply not worth it, especially if you're attending in person, is that Disney dropped more park news before the event took place and showed concept art and ride vehicles to the media that they never showed at D23. On August 21st, Disney held a media event with a parks panel that fans were expecting to get at D23, where they announced the opening date and details for Zootopia Better Together, an updated poster for Magic of Disney Animation at Hollywood Studios, new info about Big Thunder, concept art, and storyline details for Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets, and even ride vehicles like the one for Magic Kingdom's new Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin. The other news I mentioned that dropped today, Animal Kingdom's Dinosaur and Restaurantosaurus have an official closing date now, February 1st, 2026. Therefore, beginning February 2nd, all of Dino Land will be closed to make way for Tropical Americas, which, given D23's global theme this year and with an emphasis on Central and South America, that land had zero presence or recognition at all, which was just baffling to me. But still, hang with me, that is not all. Disney has also announced that two new YouTube videos from Imagineering will be dropping this month, with a new episode of We Call It Imagineering that is expected to touch on news we were anticipating at D23 about Disneyland Abu Dhabi. That is going to premiere on September 8th, with another new episode of Imagineer That with Tom Morrow dropping September 15th. So once again, more park news came before D23 than what was revealed at D23, with likely even more park announcements to come. That is why I don't think Destination D23 is worth it. I would not recommend. Granted, the shopping was somewhat enjoyable. There was exclusive merch from Walt Disney Studios and Imagineering. But as someone who's been to D23 in Anaheim, the overall selection was kind of limited. Even though some items were added throughout the weekend, there was also some free swag. But shopping itself is part of the problem, in that I felt like what I paid for at this D23 was for an opportunity to spend more money. But circling back to the lack of news out of Destination D23, coupled with the bigger announcements that came before and that are likely to come via YouTube, the question is, what is Disney doing? Why did they choose this route, and why wasn't Destination D23 properly utilized? And I think I may have a potential answer. The new head of Walt Disney Imagineering, Bruce Vaughn, has seemingly been changing how Imagineering shares information with fans. It appears that the Imagineering videos on YouTube and social media are an effort from him, and he appears to be the one who brought back Tom Morrow from Imagineer That. So my thinking is that Vaughn doesn't want D23 events or even just the Parks blog to be the only pipeline for information. He wants transparency and some education mixed in there too. If so, and even though this year's D23 felt a bit like a ripoff, in the long run, this could be good for us park fans because it means that information and announcements and details are going to be revealed to the public through public means and not just behind the D23 ticketed paywall. And honestly, that is a refreshing change, especially as we head deeper into this turbocharged era of parks, lands, and expansions. So that is my theory. That's what I hope is happening. I think that vision will become more clear as we continue to move forward. But now let's get to my rankings of this year's D23 announcements. And then I would love it if you all would head down to the comments and share your own rankings. So my number one is the return of the blue and white color palette for Cinderella Castle, and mainly because I think this is a guaranteed win, and I have no concerns that anything could go wrong. Number two is the Art Nouveau inspirations for Villains Land. Like most of you, I've had a lot of questions about the look, the tone, the style of this land, and I think the direction they're going in is going to complement the Magic Kingdom and likely inspire awe instead of being cartoony or mimicking Epic Universe's Dark Universe. Number three is Carousel of Progress. Even with my reservations and concerns, this makes sense and could, and I emphasize could, be really great even though the risk is high. And then number four is the overlay for Tron, and I do hope this marks the beginning of further seasonal and even synergy related overlays. I like when the parks and studios work together and make a new movie a celebration that extends outside the theater. But that is all I have for now. Believe me, so much more content is heading your way, and apparently more news is as well. But if you enjoyed today's video, I would so appreciate if you would give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you along, and please do share your announcement rankings in the comment section. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a magical day.